Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. It took me a minute to schedule this show this morning, so apologies. Honestly, I've been feeling under some kind of spiritual attack over the last, 12 hours. It started yesterday afternoon, and I literally had to stop myself and count my blessings to try and pull myself out of this weird funk. And then last night, I had these bizarre dreams about me digging for gold prospecting with one of my former neighbors who is actually a real gold prospector. And I was with my former landlord who's in her 90s. And I'd spoken to these people recently, so maybe I should check on them. But usually when I'm feeling like this, it usually either coincides with whatever the moon is doing. Sometimes when it's completely dark or if there's like a full moon, this happens. But a lot of times it's that something really big is about to happen. And I've learned to do an audible and when I'm feeling like this and share this with you guys, because sometimes this feeling stretches out beyond me and into a lot of other people. So I don't know if any of you have had that same feeling of spiritual attack over the last 12 hours. You guys, the spirit realm is real. Definitely some kind of disturbance in the Holy Spirit. Almost a feeling like the dark side is trying to rise and there's some kind of spiritual battle taking place somewhere that we can't see. Anyway, I'm feeling better today, but harbingers are real, aren't they? Anyway, today will be kind of a different show. We're going to talk about the Bud Light effect. Companies like Target are now running from the LGBTQ, meme, and it's because they're in fear of the Bud Light effect. So this is happening. I don't know what the end game is for the controllers. Obviously, they control everything. So we're going to be talking about that. We're going to also be talking about another alligator attack. A guy got his arm bitten off. And we're going to be talking about Jamie Foxx, who had a possible stroke, and a famous YouTuber who also actually had a stroke, and they're blaming it on energy drinks. Then at the end of the show, I'm going to show you my Blackberry bush trellis project. And also I'll be showing you the exact model of the cabin that I got. We'll talk a little bit about the mistakes I made, what I would do different, and everything about the shed to house conversion. I've spoken to at least 5 of you that are moving out this way. So some of you are already in the process. Some of you are getting sheds. Many of you have bought land. There's a lot of you already here. I've shared all those people with you guys over the past 6 months to a year. So a lot of people are out here. And so we're going to talk about some of that today. Let's go ahead and get started today. Now, here's one story I didn't talk about in the introduction, but first of all, you guys will remember this girl. Let's see if there's a picture of her. Zoom. Gosh, why won't they show her picture? Anyway, there's this girl who did, let's refresh the page here. Amanda Gorman. Many of you will remember her. She was the girl at the inauguration. Here she is here. Let's back this up so you guys can see her. And why do we remember this girl from the Eggnog the Nation? Remember we had to call it the Eggnog the Nation? Because anyone who said the word inauguration in a YouTube video right after the inauguration got strikes and their channels taken down and all this. Remember that? We caught a strike on this. And now all of a sudden the algorithms are onto other topics to ban, so it's not so important. What I'm realizing about these algorithms is that they move. They're like an artificial intelligence. They focus on certain topics and leave others alone, and then they shift. Now they only have so much computing power, and also they want, it's a fine balance, because if they have too much censorship, then they're not making their money on YouTube, right? If they go and demonetize every single person just because they mention the inauguration, then they're going to lose money. So they're real careful about how they do this. And they keep shifting the goalposts, don't they? But anyway, And most of you will remember when Bo Jivin got inaugurated, basically this girl came out and was singing this or saying this weird, cringy poem. And in it, she mentions a new dawn, which we had just talked about the day before in a decode that we did. Remember that? How did we know that they would be talking about the new dawn? Well, that's the Holy Spirit. And then we surmised, we were talking about this and we're like, the old dawn is out and the new by dawn is in. Right? So we were saying bye to the old dawn, but the two are one and the same. Two wings of the same bird bouncing off of each other, creating the very conflict that seems to a lot of people to legitimize the other side. Right? When a side is opposed, then something comes over people and they magically fall under a spell and they believe that the whole contest is real. They give legitimacy to each side based on their views because they say, oh, how can that person be bad when they're under such attack? When they've been, they've come under attack by the other side. They have to be good. See how this works? And the psychologists know this. This is why they make the fight so vicious and so nasty and so mean. Okay, and I have to catch myself sometimes because obviously I'm right-leaning, and sometimes I start picking on the Democrats, and I feel myself starting to fall back into the right-left paradigm because that's what they want. And all that does when I say those things is it gives the other side legitimacy. They say, see, that guy hates Democrats, so that means the Democrats are right. And the same applies to the right. If I was a left-leaning person and all I did was make fun of certain people on the right, then that would give legitimacy to the people on the right. I'm hoping that this is coming through loud and clear because this is definitely a psychological operation. Our entire political system is a psychological operation, and behind the scenes, the puppet master, Satan himself, is pulling the strings, manipulating all of us when they at the top are all friends. Mark my words. If Biden lives another 5 years, there will come a day where he and Trump are all hanging out together, playing golf, eating dinner, chumming it up. Just like Bush and Obama are chumming it up and all buddies and friends with the Clintons. It's all a big game. So what is this goal that they're trying to achieve? Well, we've talked about it. It's the Electric Kingdom. It's an international identification system. It's an international monetary system. Literally a one world order. They're going to use things like COVID or disease, pandemics to push their agenda. They're also going to use climate change to push their agenda. In the case of COVID, they were able to weaponize that to manipulate or to use Trump to push certain things forward, like the red flag laws, the national ID, 5G, all right, all of that was passed, and also the destruction of our monetary system through the spending of money that rarely makes it into our pockets. Mostly it's going to the pharmaceutical industrial complex, and this is how they destabilize the dollar, and handing out all those stimulus checks. It's all the same agenda when you take a step back and pull yourself out of the right-left paradigm and you see this agenda inching forward. And in the end of it, there'll be a China-like surveillance police state. Now, they won't call it social engineering. They won't call it, a social credit score. But in effect, that's what exactly it will be. It will be like a China-like social credit score, but they'll call it something different. But it'll be the same thing. And as we approach 6G, it will strengthen the surveillance police state. It'll be rule of law. They'll call it rule of law on the right, and on the left, they'll call it social credit. And if you're not down with the climate agenda or down with the other agendas that the left pushes, they'll say, oh, you don't get to play ball in the economy. So both Biden and Don have pushed forward all of this. The crashing of the dollar, the slow throttle of gasoline, doing away with the gasoline, national ID, red flag laws, and on and on and on, and all the other things that we've talked about. And this is what happens when you feel like you're forced to pick a necessary evil instead of standing on morals and principles and saying, out with all of you. We don't need government. Govern ourselves. Or come up with a different scenario, and rather than these rich people in power who keep handing the ball off to each other, advancing the ball down the field like a NFL football game. So anyway, back to this girl who made this poem, Amanda Gorman. I guess she isn't selling too many books. So they pulled the race card here. Now they're going after a Florida school who basically just didn't want to be involved in politics. So they didn't read the poem. But they're saying it's probably because they're against her race. Let's read about this. Amanda Gorman slammed officials at a school in Miami-Dade County, Florida on Tuesday for banning elementary students from reading The Hill We Climb, the poem she famously recited at President Bo Jiven's Eggnog the Nation. The poem, which has been published as a short book, will now be accessible only to middle school students at pre-K through 8th grade. In an attempt to fight back, Gorman said her publisher, Penguin Random House, is joining PEN America and others in a lawsuit to challenge book restrictions. So, her book's been restricted, and of course it had to be in Florida because they're trying to paint Florida with a broad brush, aren't they? Just because Florida wants to have schools the way schools used to be without a bunch of politics in them, they're saying that this is personal, is what they're trying to say here. So, strange times. Now, let me check in with you guys, and then we're going to get into the Bud Light effect. Good morning. Welcome to the channel, everybody. Now, if you're a little bit confused, I did do a premiere last night on the backup channel. So, and I popped in there, but I was in there under this channel in the chat. So you saw me with a wrench. But we do have 2 channels. We actually have 4 channels, but I don't use them hardly ever. But every once in a while, I'll throw videos up on the other channels. A lot of times those are re-uploads, but I try to go back at least a year to 2 years. And a lot of you haven't even seen those videos, so it's perfect place to put those videos. And so thanks everybody for showing up last night at the premiere. It also reaches out to a different crowd because we're kind of like the morning crowd, and usually morning people are not evening people. So there's a whole other side of YouTube that only comes out at night. And so that's why I upload those videos over there at night as well. Now let's get into what's going on with the Bud Light effect. Now, Bud Light is effectively dead in the water, as consumers are realizing now that they have more power than they think. Now, of course, pretty soon none of this is going to matter because all the products are going to come from the same beast at some point. It's all going to be under one conglomerate, so you're not going to have any more choices with your purchasing power. But for now, we still have some choices. And a lot of people are exercising those choices. Now, unfortunately, this is the bad thing, is that these choices that people are making, it's still political. Like, this should not be a political thing. This should be a thing that all parents or that all people relate to. That when you go to buy beer, you don't want to get agendas that you don't agree with pushed onto you. Like, that should apply to everybody, right? So let's say that Bud Light was pushing anti-LGBTQ stuff in their marketing. Well, they shouldn't do that. So the people on the left should go, you know what? That's not the place for this. I just want to, when I go through the store, I want to look at beer and I don't want to see anti-LGBT stuff on my beer can, right? Or other people's beer can for that matter. And the same applies for pro-LGBTQ, right? So if we just use common sense, the best thing to do is just stay out of it. Now, there are certain ubiquitous ideas in America that might be acceptable on a beer can, like the national holidays. Even though I don't celebrate the national holidays, a lot of people do. So that's kind of ubiquitous, right? Like if they did a Mother's Day Bud Light or something or whatever, or Christmas Bud Light on the can, most people would not object to that, right? Because they would say, oh, that's kind of part of the foundation of American culture. But when you start getting into these specific targeted marketing campaigns that appeal to very, very, very tiny minority groups, that it becomes an obvious programming attempt at that point, doesn't it? So the consumer has now flexed its muscle, and some major companies are running for the hills. Let's read about what's going on with Target, because Target has become the next Target. Target's latest partnership is customers swearing never to return. As a backlash against Bud Light seems to be a low simmer, conservative shoppers are turning their sights on other companies they believe are going woke. Most recently, Target has become a different kind of target for right-wing volatility online. So look how they picture these people as economic terrorists. Oh, you can't vote with your dollar. You can't do that. Wow, really? We can't? So here's what Target's decided to do. This is out of AP. They're pulling some LGBTQ merchandise from stores ahead of the June Pride Month after threats to workers. Now, they're blaming it on threats to workers, which is just completely ridiculous. The real reason why they're pulling it is because they don't want to be the next Bud Light. They don't want to lose all their stocks. Now, the big elephant in the room, as I always say, is that if we were going with real market forces, true market forces, then putting this merchandise on the counter would be a loser, and everybody knows it would be a loser. And it would literally cost Target millions, maybe even billions of dollars. So why would you put forward a loser? Why would you do that unless there was someone above you telling you what to do, right? Unless there was some other overarching agenda above these people's pay grade that was forcing them to push forward this agenda. And that is a big elephant in the room that nobody's really talking about, that these people are under some kind of control. Why would you even do this? Knowing that the majority of America, and that's the big obvious right now, isn't it? The majority of America is not about this, are they? They're not about it. And they're upset about it. To the point where it could drastically affect the stock prices of major companies. Okay, if they did a real poll and they asked people, okay, would you stop shopping at this place if when you went in, you saw this, this, and this? What they want us to believe is that the poll would say that 80% of people wouldn't really care. But that's not what really is happening, because really what's happening is about 80% of people do care, and to the point where they would stop shopping at some of these places if they were faced with this kind of stuff, right? That's the real truth that they're not talking about. I would, maybe not 80%, maybe 50% would say, I would not come back to that place. I can tell you this, if my children were still small and I was faced with this, I wouldn't be going into some of these stores. I would pick stores that maybe didn't have all this stuff in there. Why? Because, hey, whatever you're exposed to becomes your normal, doesn't it? Whatever you're exposed to can open up avenues and gateways to different kinds of thinking, different moral standards, and the false belief that something is acceptable because it's everywhere, right? And so some parents want to protect their children from that, or at least propose to them a different paradigm. And that's perfectly within the right of a parent to do that. It's not that they have anything against people of a certain group. It's just that they don't want to expose their children to it. And a lot of people go shopping with their children. So They make this sound like some kind of far right wing targeted effect on people, but really, this should apply to everybody. This should apply to people on the right and the left. Because what if Target had see, all you got to do is flip the script, flip it to the other side. What if you went into a store? What if the left-leaning people went into a Target and they saw this anti-LGBT stuff? They would be upset. They'd be like, you can't do that. So then why is it okay to do pro stuff in their stores? You see, you have to look at it both ways, right? It's the same reason why you don't bring your children into the lingerie section. It's the same exact reason, because there are certain things they should see and certain things they don't see. Now, I'll tell you a funny story, and then we'll get into the rest of these stories. I made it all the way into my late 20s and didn't know that the word lingerie was that. I kept calling it lingerie. And my ex-wife corrected me. She's like, that's not lingerie, it's lingerie. I go, wow. I go, maybe if you were wearing more of it. No, okay, that was just about to make an inappropriate joke. But funny, right? Anyway, I'll never forget. We were in a Kmart. I think we were in Merced, California, and I was in my late 20s, mid to late 20s. I go, where are you going? I go, are you going to the lingerie section? She said, it's not lingerie, it's lingerie. Anyway, let's move on. So this is what's going on in Target. They're pulling some of this stuff. Now, of course, this is going to enrage the left. They're going to be like, you can't do this. This is discrimination. There'll probably be lawsuits from the left against Target. And it's going to create backlash and all this stuff. And I don't know what's going to happen. But at some point, things are going to get really weird if they haven't already gotten weird. Now, this next story. Another gator attack. Now, the frequency of these attacks seems to be, to me anyways, to be fulfilling one of the prophecies in the book of Revelation about animals, beasts turning on people, like basically demonically possessed beasts, losing their fear of humans. We've been talking a lot about this. Dogs, coyotes running off with children, foxes attacking people, rabid animals. Seems to be happening at a fever pitch, isn't it? This guy lost his arm. He says it's not the end of the world. Oh boy. Florida man whose right arm was bitten off by a 10-foot alligator brushed off losing a limb in the attack because, as he puts it, it's not the end of the world. Jordan Rivera, 23, fell into a pond behind Bandito's bar. Oh boy. Had too many to drink and went for a walk. I didn't lose my life. I lost an arm. It's not the end of the world. He's lucky he got out of there alive, because typically when one gator goes, the rest go after the person. Those gators didn't truly understand them until I woke up in the hospital. Oh, gator got your arm, Rivera said. This guy's pretty lighthearted about it. Oh boy. Well, I don't go to bars anymore. Used to. Now, what else do we have? Well, speaking of alligators, a famous YouTuber. Many of you guys will recognize this guy, Robert Arrington, if you haven't heard by now. He had multiple strokes. His channel is Deer Meat for Dinner. And he had so many strokes that he can't talk, and he can barely use one of his arms. Now, I used to follow this guy a lot, about probably 6 years ago. And then he started getting into like a lot of celebrity catch, clean, and cooks. He was all buddied up and chummed up with the NFL team and had a bunch of players go out with him. And then one day I saw that he was giving kudos to a statue of George Bush Sr. in the airport. And now I've been following these guys this family since they had less than 100,000 subscribers. Now they're well over 2 million. And he was giving homage to jets flying over and our war, and saying that the jets were protecting us and all this. Basically, the party line, the Freemason line to keep soldiers signing up for the military and dying for nothing, for a lie. So I kind of stopped watching him for a while. I was upset with him because I had left some comments. I'm like, dude, you got to wake up. You're a leader in the wildlife community, because this guy goes out and catches alligators and stuff. And you got to at least wake up to, or at least not push the false narrative. It's okay to stay out of politics, but if you're pushing a false narrative, that's men, women, and children signing up to die, basically. You're pushing that. So he's hung out with some questionable people, some millionaires and billionaires, and a lot of these people seem to me to be Freemasons. So I just kind of stopped watching him for a while. But then recently I started watching his brother, Blue Gabe, which I feel is a lot more real. He kind of came up from nothing. But, you know, probably all these people are compromised. Who knows? But anyway, I was watching Blue Gabe, and I thought I would give Robert and Deer Meat for Dinner another chance. So I started kind of watching them again to see if maybe anything had changed. So I pull up the channel, and this guy had 2 strokes. And his wife said, she came on and said that it was because of him chugging energy drinks. Now, this is apparently a condition. I didn't know about this, but if you chug energy drinks, this is what they're saying, can lead to a condition called reversible cerebral vasoconstriction syndrome, RCVS. Now, his wife in the video actually said that the doctor said that that's why he had the multiple strokes, from chugging too many energy drinks. Now, if you guys watch this channel, you'll know that Robert Arrington does not stop. This guy is always filming. He's burning the candle on both ends. Him and his family. He's got 2 daughters. He's running basically several households. He's traveling. And this is what I think happened. I think he had just got back from South America, and as far as I know, it makes you wonder if certain things that you do or poke yourself with can exacerbate this or make you more prone to this energy drink condition, where maybe before you weren't prone to it, but now something's changed in your cardiovascular system. Maybe there are outside factors. So he had just done one of his first major trips out of the country after COVID. And as far as I know, a lot of these countries are requiring the smack the nation. And I wonder if this was somehow connected. I'm not saying it's connected. I'm wondering if it was somehow connected. So, I mean, he's done some videos after this, and he's slurring his words. He can't talk. He can't really use one of his arms very well. This guy's life has completely changed. I don't know how his channel is going to survive. I mean, he's got a lot of friends and family that are doing videos for him. But essentially, his whole channel revolved around him. He's the guy with the talent, and he's the guy who does all the videos. And he's kind of like, I would probably compare him to, what's that guy that did the alligators that died from a stingray poking him in the chest? He's kind of like the modern version of that. And so, who knows what's going to happen. I'm sure people will still watch him. He's got enough of a following. But I do know that this guy spends a lot of money. He's got several boats that are at least $500,000. He just built a huge house in Florida. And they have hunting leases and everything else. So this guy's probably running at $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a month in costs. And look, I'm not knocking him for that. But as I always tell you guys, and we'll talk about this at the end of the show, when it all fails, you have to have something to fall back on. You have to have a place to be. You cannot keep chasing the dragon, chasing the beast, because at some point it will catch up with you. And this is one prime example. It all came to a stop one day while he was hunting alligators in a pond. Why? Because people have been getting attacked by alligators out of ponds. An elderly woman got killed, her and her dog. So he's been, this guy seems to have a good heart. He's been going to these ponds to capture these alligators to keep people safe. Okay. So he does a lot for the community and everything. So I'm going to give fair balance here. But this is how it all is starting to end for him. Now, he'll probably recover to some degree, but it'll never be the same. Because this guy, like I said, he was traveling to other countries, and he's probably dependent on these energy drinks for his energy. And now, obviously, he can't drink them anymore. So how's that going to change? You can only drink so much coffee. So the Bible says moderation, doesn't it? And that's what I want to talk to you guys at the end of the show today, is moderation. But first, we're going to talk about Mike Tyson, because Mike Tyson seems to have spilled the beans on Jamie Foxx. As many of you know, Jamie Foxx was in the hospital too, and it almost appears as though something similar happened to Jamie Foxx. So what did Mike Tyson say, and how did he spill the beans about Jamie Foxx? Mike Tyson may have potentially revealed the mystery medical complication that Jamie Foxx suffered back in April. While making an appearance on PBD podcasts, the 56-year-old former professional boxer opened up about what he allegedly heard happened when the Django Unchained Star 55 was taken to the hospital. He's not feeling well, Tyson told the host, Patrick Bet-David, on the May 16th episode. They said it was a stroke, he said initially, before quickly clarifying, I have no idea what happened to him. So, seems as though maybe Jamie Foxx had a stroke. Now, this whole drama could just be a bait and switch. It could be pre-programming, so that when a bunch of people get strokes, they'll have a scapegoat, they'll have an explanation, they'll say, oh, it was from the energy drinks, right? I mean, most people drink energy drinks now, so they could just blame it on that. So I guess we'll just have to see what this is really all about. So let's get back to the Honey Milk Ranch. And then I'll show you guys the Dirksen building. This very building that you're looking at right now. It's actually the porch. But I was working on a Blackberry trellis project. And I want to share that with you now. Well, sometimes you just got to use what you have. And I had some of that fencing there. And so that's what I used to put up for the blackberries. So I'll have something to grow on, because we're quickly approaching growing season. Those flags you see on there are these. So I had these left over and they have wire on them. So I was like, you can't really see it here, but let me zoom it up. Yeah, you can't see it that good in the picture, but I'll walk up to it in a second. You can use those to like bale it together. And once it's all full of blackberries, we'll see at that point if it needs to be like shored up somehow or something, and I can add other posts in there or whatever to strengthen it. But right now, put concrete inside the cinder blocks. So I'm gonna fill up some water here and pour that water in there to get the concrete ready. Now, as you can see, I'm a cinder block fiend, because I got a whole pile of them and I was like, I'm going to use this for stuff. So here I'm using it to support this, basically a hose hanger, whatever. And I'm using it for all kinds of stuff. There's never enough cinder blocks. No matter how many you have, there's always something to use them for, because they're very convenient to use. So there's a quick look at what I did. So I took 2 blocks, I pounded these posts in the ground, filled it with the little bit of leftover concrete I had. I didn't go all the way to the top, but I filled in with just the powder concrete, and then I just poured water inside. And this will become the support system for all of the blackberries that I have along this row here. It's not perfect, but I put blocks in there. I put whatever concrete I had left over, and all these plants will grow right onto the fence here. That is thornless, and that's a thornless. I put 2 on each side. That obviously has thorns. Those are the male trees because there's no flowers. Another male tree. This is a thornless, and that's a thornless. And as you can see, it's already getting some stuff on it. So I'm going to pour this water in here.
I already have concrete. Doesn't take much. Pour some in there. The rest in here. Should firm it up. I did pound these posts in here a bit to give them some ooh, probably good. All right, golden. I hear an animal in distress.
So at about that time, I'm listening and I hear some kind of animal in distress. Almost sounded like some kind of distress call that hunters use to draw in predators. But it was over on my neighbor's property. So I walk over to the neighbor's property.
Over on Lee's property. Let's see if we can see what's going on. Especially since we just saw that coyote.
I was almost wondering if a coyote had like a deer cornered or something, you know? So I wanted to go check on it to see if I could save the deer or something.
Hear a lot of activity over here. Something's going on.
You can almost hear the birds in the background, like everything was just going off over there.
See if we can sneak up. A lot of times coyotes will go after the baby deer.
Yeah, Lee has a really nice property. I don't know if he spent quite a bit on his property. It's a log cabin with a basement and everything, and 3-car garage. Mine's a lot simpler than that, but his is really cool.
Wound them and stuff, so they'll sit in distress, getting picked apart by predators. Coyotes, unfortunately, are much akin to hornets. Not really good use for them. They are scavengers, but if they rove and run everything, they will cause lots of damage to the natural wildlife. I don't hear anything now.
Now, of course, as soon as I walked up, the sound stopped. So I don't know what was going on. Who knows? Maybe a deer was giving birth. I don't know what was going on. Then I got some footage of these beautiful butterflies. They're all hanging out in these bushes here.
Those beautiful butterflies.
Whole mess of them. So that's the update on the Honey Milk Ranch. Now, for those of you that are still tuning in, I wanted to share with you the Dirksen building project, how all this started. I was like, wow, you can have a whole house that you can then complete and turn into a house for not that much money. Now, I don't know how much these things are going for now, but back when I got mine, it wasn't very much money. It was very doable. And in fact, I would say if you had to finance it, it was a lot less than a car payment, any car payment that I've had. And so this is something you can do, or you can save the money and like pay them off. But this is the exact model that I got. It's called a Dirksen building. Now, these are apparently built either by the Amish, or they're very well built portable buildings. But as you can see, they have a cabin model. Now, they have other models too. They have a model called like a barn, and it kind of goes up and it looks like a barn. It like has 3 transitions. But I didn't want my place to look like a barn. I wanted it to look more like a cabin or house. So they have a cabin model. Now, mine had one of these porches on it, but I actually had my porch framed in to get the square footage I needed. Otherwise, I would have been under the 1,000-foot minimum square footage for where I'm living. And so here they are. Now, I want to talk a little bit about some of the mistakes I made and some of the things I did right. One of the things I did right was I took 2 of these and combined them together to get more square footage, because the largest one they make is a 16 by 50 foot, which is, I don't know if you do the math, it's like what, like 600 or 700 square feet. Much too small of a living space for most people, unless you're like a single person. I wanted something that was at least going to be 1,000 square feet so that I could, you know, if I have friends over or something, and just so I don't feel claustrophobic, right? And also, as part of the requirements, like I said, I tried to get completely unrestricted land, but I wasn't able to get completely unrestricted land. So there are some covenant rules where I'm living. I have to have minimum 1,000 square feet, and I cannot build an additional structure on the property. I can only have one family dwelling on the property, and I can't live in a mobile home on the property either, which is fine. But that's the rules that I have here. Now, all properties are not like that. Like, I went over to Rose's property and they have no restrictions at all. Okay, they can do whatever they want with their property. But this is it here. So one of the things I did right was, you know, definitely you want to get two of these. You can connect them together. Now, apparently, I was one of the first people to ever do this. No one had ever done this before. But if I had to do it again, what I would do is flip this sideways, because right now it's set up exactly kind of like how you see it. So the bigger cabin's here on the left, and then the smaller cabin's on the right. And then I pushed them together a little bit closer than you see in the picture, to where almost these eaves are touching. They put a rain gutter down the middle of it. The problem is it collects leaves and snow. It doesn't snow a lot here, and you have to like constantly clean it out. Otherwise, you're going to get water coming up through here, which is exactly what happened. I had a little tiny bit of water damage for all the years that well, not all the years, but a year or two that I was not around to maintain the property. I mean, I was here, but I couldn't live in it yet. And I didn't realize that this was a problem yet. And now I have like a technique that I use to clear this without having to climb on the roof, because you want to be climbing on roofs at our age. So I have like a stick with a that goes all the way through the length of the eave here, and at the end of it is a toilet brush that I attach onto the stick. I leave it in the gutter, and when I need to clear it, I just pull the stick out, and it pulls all the debris to me, so I can grab it with my gloves without climbing on the roof. I do have to get on the ladder, but I don't have to climb on the roof, and then I just grab it and pull it out, throw it on the ground. Then I put the stick back in and leave it in there. And when the debris fills up again, I just pull it. I have to do that in the spring probably 4 times. I don't know about the fall. I don't know how the leaves fall or where they fall, if they're going to fall on the roof or are they going to fall somewhere else, but I may have to do this in the fall as well. So there is a little bit of maintenance to this. Now, the other mistake I made is they build these to order pretty much. So you go on here, you pick out your doors and windows, and it's really cheap. It's like they charge you like $150 or $200 per window, which is unheard of. So you get the window and the installation for that cost. You can add as many as you want. It's not that much more or that much less. I would say put lots of windows, because you don't want to feel claustrophobic. You don't want to feel like you're in a tunnel. And so you get the windows, they put it all together, they build it in like a factory, and then it sits in a lot somewhere until a truck brings it, like a semi-truck. Semi-truck shows up. It's got what's called a little tractor. It's called a mule. And it's basically a 2-wheeled tractor. And it has like little tiny forklifts, and it comes up under the edge and it like maneuvers this thing around. So you have to have a relatively flat area to put this on. Now, at some point, I'll show you guys the foundation, because I made some foundation mistakes as well. I had to, okay, so there are 2 types of structures. There's a permanent foundation, and then there's a mobile foundation or unpermanent foundation. Apparently, the world is moving towards permanent foundations, which means, yes, this is a real house. It's built to spec of a house, okay? It's got all the studs in it with the correct spacing and all this. But a lot of, you'll run into problems when you go to try to get insurance and things for these kinds of things, unless you have it on a permanent foundation. You'll run into problems selling the property and getting financing, or someone else being able to get financing and a mortgage on your property to buy it, if you don't have it on a permanent foundation. So what would I recommend? I would recommend putting it on a permanent foundation. Now, what is a permanent foundation? Well, according to law, you have to have a 12-inch by 12-inch perimeter wall going all the way around the edge of this thing with supports in the middle. And the perimeter wall has to be tied into the structure. So now I had to do all this after the fact because I thought I had a permanent foundation, and then I got that letter from some neighbors that were literally almost a mile away who saw my structure through the trees when the leaves were off the trees and wrote a nasty letter and had all the people on the street sign it saying that I was building an illegal structure. And that kind of messed me up. And this is why I didn't share this with you guys for a while, because it was a project in the making. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to share it with you. Wasn't sure what was going to happen. And now everything's worked out. They backed off because I put the permanent foundation in, right? So I had to do this after the fact. So what happened was the buildings were already there. What are you going to do? You can't really move the buildings. I mean, I could have, but they were already on piers. Those pier blocks that you saw were all underneath this. They were all shimmed and leveled. So I can't move it. That would have cost a fortune, right? So what my contractor did, my former contractor, not Ben, is they excavated all around the edge. They bought a cement truck. They put forms in, and they poured the perimeter foundation while the building was sitting there, which is probably unheard of. Like, no one's ever done that before. So if you had to after the fact, you could, but it's probably better to do it before. Now, I don't even know if that's possible to do it beforehand, because when they bring these buildings out on the flatbed truck and they have the mule and they're maneuvering it around, if there was already a perimeter wall there, it would be in the way. They wouldn't be able to do it because the perimeter wall is essentially like a lip all the way around. It goes up 12 inches, literally. So I don't even know if they'd be able to do it. So you'd have to do the perimeter wall after the fact. So that's just some of the things that I had to deal with. Also with this roof, what I would have done if I had the chance to do it again, instead of dealing with this M-shaped roof, the letter M-shaped roof, I would have turned this smaller building sideways. I would have turned it sideways, and I would have had a hip roof built and connected the two. Apparently that's not that expensive to do. It was when lumber was expensive, but my new contractor, Ben, said he could probably have gotten that done in like a week. So, and with materials, it's not that much. So, that is the update on the cabin. Now you can read all about this. I'll put a link to this. You guys can see this. There's different kinds. There's painted cabins. There's treated cabins, urethane, and metal. I got the urethane cabin. It kind of keeps the water out. But what you definitely want to do when you order this cabin, if you order one, is to get the vapor barrier, get it wrapped. It's called getting it wrapped. And they can do this right in the factory, but you have to tell them that you want that. And nobody asked me if I wanted this, and I failed to get mine wrapped beforehand. If you do not get it wrapped, what you're left with inside this wall here is all you have is studs and this what's called OSB siding. And the siding is like, gosh, I think it's 1/4 inch thick. It's not super thin, but that's it between you and the outside world. And so in terms of moisture getting in, the only other option you'd have if you don't get this wrapped is spray foam. Spray foam is super expensive, and I had to do spray foam. And I was upset about it because it cost like 3 times as much as what it would cost if I had it wrapped and then use regular insulation pushed into between the studs. That would have been way cheaper than spray foam. For some reason, spray foam got super expensive. Also, spray foam is more permanent. It encases all your wires. So if you ever have any problems with wires, you'd have to basically pull out a bunch of spray foam, and then it would be a mess, right? So that's the update on the cabin. Now I'll go into the chat here and see if you guys have any other questions about this. But basically the way Dirksen works, they're kind of the builder, and then they use these different outlets. They're called dealers, and the dealers sell the Dirksen building. And and then you pick it up from your local dealer. Now, I had a local dealer right here in the town next door that was a Dirksen dealer. So that's who I went to. You could sit down, they send you pictures. It's a pretty neat process. And it's kind of exciting because it's your home, right? But just so you know, you can do a shed to house conversion. Now, would I have done this again? I don't know. Because my previous builder told me, he's like, I could have built this for you, stick and frame. But I don't know. This was a really well-built building. I'm very pleased with it. Who knows what it would have cost had I gone with stick and frame instead of this. I can tell you this, though. A lot of people consider doing the shipping containers. And here's the problem with shipping containers. Even if you buy a shipping container, and yeah, they're super cheap, right? You still have to stick and frame the inside of it so that you can attach everything. You can't just live inside a shipping container. You still have to use lumber inside. So if you're going to use lumber inside, why not just build a stick and frame building? You see what I mean? So essentially, a shipping container is just siding. That's all it really is. It's the siding of the stick and frame building. That's what it becomes if you try to build a shipping container home. Problem with it is shipping containers are very narrow, and the roof of the shipping containers are not built for stability. So it's basically very thin metal at the top. So you'd have to reinforce that. And in order to get windows, you have to basically get some kind of you have to basically cut out the windows of the shipping container. So now you're into, welding and all that stuff, arc welding to cut out the metal and all that. So there was one time in my life I thought I wanted to live in a shipping container, and then I researched it and I realized, no, it's more like a gimmick. You're much better off doing something like this or just building stick and frame. There are people that can still build these stick and frames, especially in these areas. You just got to find the right contractor that doesn't charge too much. And if you're modest in what you want and put the money that you do spend in other places that give you more impact, then you can achieve something like this without too much money, without spending too much money. For instance, on my house, it's not very big, but I got the sliding glass windows to open up the view. So that pivots the focus of the house. So you're not like going, oh wow, it's small, but then you have somewhere to go out onto the deck. So I decided to invest more in that, windows and deck, to open things up. So let's see, is there anything else I wanted to talk to you guys about the Dirksen building? Yeah, you can read all about this. There's links here. They talk about the actual buildings. Here, let's go through some of these about Dirksen buildings. Okay, let's see here. Most trusted name in portable buildings. Now, I don't have any affiliation with these people. I don't get anything when you buy a building, okay? I'm not about that on this channel. But they've been 20 years, most trusted name in backyard storage solutions. Since 1995, Dirksen has set the standard in the industry. Building top quality buildings at an affordable price. Oh, they're Mennonite, actually, constructed in the tradition of Mennonite craftsmanship. Okay. Each of the structures is handmade and built to last. When you buy a Dirksen, you can buy confidence. We will be here for service after the sale. So you can buy it outright or rent to own. They don't do credit checks. 5-year warranty on materials and workmanship. So that's what they're about. And so hopefully that helps some people. I know a lot of you aren't able to do this. But I always tell people you can't afford not to try to find a way out from under the thumb of a landlord. I've heard so many stories from you guys, especially during the pandemic. A lot of your rents like doubled. You're like, wow, you basically got priced out of your home, out of your rental. Your rent went from $500 to $1,000 a month. And it's just because of market forces outside of your control. Kind of happened to me when I was in Connecticut. The living situation I was at there, the rent went up so high that it just didn't even make sense. You couldn't even live there anymore without just giving your money away to a landlord. So I tell people, you might feel safe now. Your rent might be $400 a month now or $500 a month, but at any day, your economy in your local area could flip, gentrification or whatever they call it, and you could find yourself scrambling to find somewhere to live, upending your whole family situation and everything. And why wait for that to happen when you might want to start working on a project like this? I don't know. The land is the first step. And as far as I know, Rose told me that there's still land over where she lives in Flippin for $3,000 an acre. So you buy an acre, you pay your $10 a year in taxes, $10 or $20 a year in taxes, and you just keep dreaming. And at some point, if you wanted to, you could do a rent-to-own cabin, and it's going to be just a raw shell at first. But if you have any kind of abilities, I mean, everything's online now. You could learn to do all this stuff. I probably could have done 90% of the stuff. Well, not 90%, probably like 80% of the stuff that I had done. I probably could have figured it out myself. But I wanted to kind of get in here sooner than later. So I did pay for a lot of the stuff to get done, but I probably could have done my own drywall. I just pretty much was support for the guys that were working. I got rid of all the trash every day. You know, I made sure everything was good. They were streamlined so they could get the job done quickly, right? So, all right. Any questions you guys have? Lisa says, I rent a 2-bedroom cottage for $575 in Central Virginia. My rent has not gone up. Well, bless you. That's great. Most of you are in the $500 range. Gosh, I've never even heard of rent that cheap before. Yes, I hated renting as more money than I was paying a mortgage. Drama with people upstairs, neighbors, no privacy. Yeah. Mortgage is different and not rent. Mine is just over $1,300, says Snowball. Zachary says you have better things to do than drywall. Well, I watched them closely. If I had to, I could do it. I watched them enough. It's a process, you know. It's a huge process. But to rent my house would easily be $2,500, says Snowball. Yeah, I mean, can you imagine someone paying that much money? And look at what happened to Robert Arrington. He had essentially a machine going. I mean, you should have seen they had like hundreds of acres, deer leases. That stuff costs money, you guys. All the car payments and boat payments. I mean, and then when you get sick, everything still has to be paid. It's not going away. Now, most of us don't live our lives like that, right? I live a very simple life, as you guys know. I don't have flashy things. I don't have a new car. I've had the same truck since 2014. My total monthly bills is like $370 a month. That includes everything. That includes my insurance on my place, my car insurance. That includes my cell phone bill, my electric bill, my propane. Total is $370 a month. Okay. What does that do? Well, it frees you up so you don't have fear. Most of us live in fear. Most of us are living paycheck to paycheck. How are we going to pay our rent? How are we going to pay our car payment? How are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? Right? It's because we don't create for ourselves a way to get out of all that. We think that we're just going to be prisoners because of where we're living and the rent we pay to a landlord or a mortgage. Okay? Well, that mortgage is still going to be there if you get sick. The mortgage is still going to be there if you have a divorce. The mortgage is still going to be there. You're pretty much like you're trapped in it. And it doesn't have to be that way. Now, are there a lot of jobs out here? Not really. But I can tell you this, if you have some kind of a skill, like if you do like drywall or something like that, or if you know how to run a sawmill or plumbing or electrician, these guys, and I know this from my neighbor, these guys stay busy year round, even out here in rural Arkansas, because a lot of people are building. So they always need electricians. In fact, they're in a bidding war. A lot of these electricians, they charge whatever they want. Now, I was fortunate because Ben brought on an electrician to finish up my work. I didn't have to pay nearly as much. But these electricians are charging $15,000, $20,000 to wire a small house. So if you were an electrician, you could be making good money. Now, most of you, if you were an electrician, you wouldn't charge that much. You would be fair. But costs for material costs have gone up. They've doubled and tripled. So a lot of times you have to charge a lot more. But I'm trying to give you guys some real actionable intelligence, right? I'm trying to give you some knowledge so that you know what you're in for. Also to know what this is all about, what I'm doing out here, why I'm doing it. I'm trying to be an example. I'm trying to show people a different way to live because I've already lived the other way. I already had the California homes, the mortgages, the career. I already had all that. And even though I make far less money now, I'd rather have it the way it is now, the way I am in my life now. Lean and mean, right? Without a bunch of attachments and costs and obligations and all that. So, and you can still have something relatively nice without, living ghetto or, all these things. And it's yours. You're not having to pay someone else and be at someone else's mercy. Okay? That's the lesson here. It's the ark. It's what Noah did. Do you think Noah wanted to build an ark? Well, he probably did because he loved God. He trusted God. But, when you're comfortable, you got everything you need. A lot of people don't think that they have to build an ark. They don't. The ark is symbolic of the future. The ark is symbolic of preparation, real preparation, not storing up for yourself gold and silver, which is, heck, if you would have put a bunch of gold and silver in the ark, it probably would have sunk, right? It's nature. It's putting yourself in nature. And think about this for a second. Let's think spiritually about this, because this is pretty amazing. What Noah did and what God asked him to do was essentially take the trees and build a forest around the animals in the form of an ark. I'll say that again. What God asked Noah to do was take the forest around him and build it around the animals to enclose them in the wilderness so they could weather the storm. And we're going into the last days. And do we really think God will leave us unprotected to weather the storm of the last days? Of course not. But we also have to do our part to build our arks in whatever shape or form that is. It might not be a home. Maybe your ark is something different, right? Maybe your ark is just leaving a job where you're going to get laid off or something. Maybe your ark is something else. But it's being independent from the beast. I can tell you that much right now. Being independent from the beast. When I was younger, I had this Pollyanna outlook on life. I was a Cal Poly graduate. I had a little bit of pride, I guess, back then. I was like, I'm a Cal Poly graduate. I'm a minority, blah, 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 blah. All the labels that they put on us, we put on ourselves. Oh, I'm great. People are going to love me. I'm a great salesman. And then I got some humbling. And I'll admit a couple times, maybe it was my fault. Maybe I wasn't being as serious about the job. Most of the time, though, you're at the whim of the market. You're at the whim of whatever economy. It doesn't matter how hard you work. What matters in a career is who you know. That's what matters. They don't care about how hard you work. They don't care that you have a mortgage to pay. They don't care that your wife is a stay-at-home mom and that everybody is solely dependent on you to make the world go round. They don't care about any of that. All they care about is their bottom dollar and their market forces and what they want to do. And at any given time, all of that can be pulled out from under you. You might think you're in a secure job. You might think that you have it all wrapped up. But at the end of it, people turn on people. And I've heard this story 100 times, even from you, some of you. How you thought you had it licked, and then somebody at work didn't like you, and boom, now all of a sudden you're without a job. And the bills start to pile up. And at those times, that's when you wish that you didn't have a mortgage and you had something paid off, or that you had moved and taken the savings you had, or, maybe some of you get Social Security, disability, and you're like, this would be something totally doable. But then it's too late. When you're in the middle of the crisis, it's too late. This requires planning. Like the ark. Can you imagine if Noah was sitting there, the rain started, and his ark wasn't done? Had he not trusted God, or had he not even decided to start building the ark, there would be no world, would there? Because the entire world was on that ark. Our forefathers. So, just some words, like I said, everybody has their own ark, and only you and God know what that ark is. But I can tell you this, it will require changes. Changes are coming, whether or not you want to move with the changes. If you want to be affected by the changes, or are you going to affect the change now before the changes begin? Hopefully on this channel, I've given you guys enough information about what the future holds and what the controllers are up to, regardless of what side you fall on politically. I already told you where they're headed, and we've proven it. We've talked about it for years and years and years, where everything's headed. So now's your chance to change where you're at, so that you're prepared for the future, prepared for what's coming. So, yes, depend on the Father. And sometimes the Father asks us to do things. We do have to take action. Time and time again in the Bible, it's been proven. Have to take action sometimes. But only you will know that. Only you know that. Okay? That's between you and God. But my job is to deliver the message. That's what God's told me to do. Deliver the message. And he's put it on my heart. And it's real. A lot of people will not be honest with you in fear of being judged. A lot of YouTube channels won't tell you where they live, how they're living. Okay? And I'm not criticizing them. I'm just saying it took a lot of courage for me to come forward and share with you all these parts of my life. Okay? And even it could have been to the detriment of my channel. But I listened to the Most High, what he told me to do. And he said, you need to tell the flock. You need to tell everybody what's coming and how to prepare for it. Gosh, I could easily be on here saying, hey, you guys sign up for Noble Gold, and then line my pockets, right? I could have done that, right? But that's not what I'm telling you to do, is it? I'm being brutally honest with you. And some want to hear the message, but a lot don't. Okay? A lot of YouTubers will get on here and enrich their own pockets. Oh, what if I put affiliate links to everything? Hey, guys, buy a Dirksen building, and then you go and sign up, and it's got my name on it. You see how easily a dishonest person could be trying to make money off of something like this? Obviously, that's not what we're doing. I don't push any affiliates or any links on here. And so that's how you know that what I'm telling you is real. Okay? Because there's so many things that could have gone wrong with this. I trust God, and God protects me. And I hope that you guys trust God too. I know you do, because you have a hunger for the truth. And I just pray that at whatever point in your life where God reaches out to you and speaks to you and tries to give you signs and symbols about where your life is going next, I pray that you take action, that you follow that path that he has set out for you, whether that be someone coming into your life, whether that be somewhere where God is telling you to go, whether that be a change in relationship status, whether that be a change in job, a change in landlords, or going for it and trying to get out from under the beast. So I pray that happens in Jesus' name. So All right, you guys. Anything else? Do you guys have any questions about any of this? Any questions? All right, let's go up here. All right. Yes, the Most High is my sponsor. Absolutely. Amen. Yes. Okay. I'm just hanging out a little bit longer in case you guys have questions about any part of the process or anything like that. Yeah, I feel bad for all the crypto people that got deceived too, Tracy. We were not crypto fans from the very beginning. In fact, I separated from some friends that I had on YouTube because they started talking about making money in crypto. I was like, no, not doing that. Thanks, Bassy Sitch. Thank you. Thanks, Dave. Yeah, I think the confiscation of land thing is a psyop. I think that they're fearing people into not wanting to get land, thinking that it's going to get taken away. There's a lot of things that are different about America that will never become like a Russia. First of all, the people in Russia and Australia, they got tricked out of their losing their guns. Okay, they got tricked out of it. Well, now history has a track record. People aren't that dumb anymore to just give up their guns, right? So that's not going to happen again, at least not in America. And you don't realize that until you come out to places like this, where you need a gun. I just had a coyote run through my property. One of you told me coyotes attacked your son, but he had a gun and he was able to handle the situation. You have to have a gun. No one is going to give up their guns. Now, they might make certain guns illegal, and they'll try to do that. But at the rate they're going now, they can't get the 300 million weapons that are running around, one gun for every man, woman, and child in America. And people aren't going to give that up. Not unless there's some serious deception that happens. Another thing you realize when you move out to these areas is that most people out in the country own their own land. And there's a lot of people out here, and we all have guns. And nobody is coming to confiscate your land. Nobody. There aren't enough soldiers. Now, they might try to drone strike certain people, but at a certain point, they're going to run out of ordnance. You don't have enough drones to strike people, nor do they have the will, because most of the people that served in the military are awake now. They're not going to turn on their own friends and family who own property. They could get tricked into it, possibly, like what happened with Waco and stuff. But that's one farm. That's one place. And those are just stories to scare you, okay? The minute you stop buying land and talk yourself out of it, that's when they start to win. Do you see? Like the people that were telling Noah not to build the ark. You're crazy. What are you talking about? Rain. Water doesn't fall out of the sky. This is what they told Noah. You're crazy. Don't build an ark. Just hang out with us. You see the problem? There's so many similarities. The days of Noah will be like the end times. It's happening, you guys. And if you do not prepare, or if you believe we're going to be spared all this, we're going to get raptured away. We are the most wicked generation to ever walk the planet. Like the days of Noah. Very wicked generation. Noah was one of the only faithful ones. Noah and his family. And what makes us think we're special to get raptured away and be spared anything? Look, we already went through a really hard time, didn't we? Did we get raptured away after COVID and the pandemic? People threatened and their jobs threatened. They had to choose between getting poked and their job and their livelihood. Some cases, custody of your children. Right? That was basically a really hard time. People had sensory deprivation, locked in your homes. Remember, they were putting plastic on the windows. We had to order all of our food online. That was a really hard time for a lot of people. Where was the rapture? And it's only going to get worse from there. That was just a taste of what it's going to be like. And it's like birth pangs, the Bible says, the end times. It's going to seem like it's okay for a minute, and then the next set of labor pains is going to come in. And it's going to be worse than the previous ones. So, we are a wicked generation. We are far less obedient to the Most High than people that came before us who didn't get rescued. So when Jesus comes back, he's just going to come back, and it's going to be at the end of times. That's when we're going to get rescued. Yes, Jesus is returning, but there isn't going to be a group left behind, and I just do not believe that. And if you're believing that, then what does that make you do? It gives you a false sense of security. Oh, you don't have to prepare. Oh, don't worry about it. Don't prepare for the tribulation. And then the devil has you, because then what he does is as soon as times get really hard, what do people do at that point? Oh, there's no rapture? They start cursing God, don't they? God, you've forsaken us. Where are you? Why are we having to go through this? Why have I lost all my family and friends because of my belief? Right? Do you see how the enemy works? You should be ready for anything. You should be ready for any kind of suffering. That's the way I look at life. I'm ready for anything. I'm ready to lose it all. Even if I lost this house and I was homeless, I would still be ready for that. Because I've been homeless before. For the majority of the last 7 years, I was homeless. And I never turned my back on God or never said, when's the suffering going to end? Will you rapture me away? So, these are the words that God has impressed upon me, upon my heart, to share with you today. All right, let's go into the chat again. I want to hear you guys talk. All right. See what's going on in here. Yes, the wrath of God is set aside for the sinners, the wicked. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. All right. Do I still hoop, says Brandon. Yeah, I've got a little arcade basketball. I haven't gone like full court hoop in a while. I haven't done that. Well, when I was in Connecticut, I did full court hoops. You know, I try to go out every day. But out here I've got my little arcade basketball, which, believe it or not, I always dreamed of being able to play basketball inside my house. And I have these little miniature basketballs, and I bounce them on the floor as hard as I can. I shoot from all the way across the room. Nobody tells me you can't do that. You can't do that. Well, Joni, it's not, unfortunately. We're already in the tribulation. Again, most of you that come to this channel have lost all your family and friends. Many of you have lost your jobs. Some of you have lost your children because of your beliefs about the sticker. So it's already happening. Your spirit or emotional tribulation has already happened. Okay. People are acting super weird, aren't they? So our hope is on heaven. That's why Jesus tells us, keep your eyes fixed on heaven. Because what do we care about this life? I'm not attached to anything in this life. There's nothing here. This world sucks. This world is lame. And some people might think, oh, Casey, you're great. You know, you're on YouTube, you have a following, you just built a house. You know, no, this life is lame. Okay? You can't connect with people anymore. You know? people have anchors in them, things that, it's almost like where there's no natural affection. The Bible talks about this. In the last days, there will be no natural affection. I don't even know how the next generation is going to happen with how dysfunctional the world has become and our relationships have become and what's important to people. The pendulum has swung and it's just people don't connect anymore. I don't know if the electronics did it. I don't know if social media did it. I have no idea what's happened, but something has changed dramatically. It's changed dramatically. People don't even marry or pair up together for the right reasons anymore. There is no love. People don't fall in love anymore. They pair up because it's convenient. And then you got people who are staying in dysfunctional relationships when there's perfectly good men out there who don't beat their wives or talk down to them. And people stay in these really screwed up situations for one reason or another. I've never seen anything like it. And it saddens me because I don't know how long people can sustain this. I really don't. I don't know how long people can maintain this amount of pressure. And I pray to God and I ask him, I go, how much longer can people stand this, God? Jesus has to come back soon. This is getting crazy. And it's great when you're on top of the world and you've got everything going for you. But when it all comes crashing down, like the lady who put fentanyl in her husband's Moscow Mule just to cash in on $2 million so she could have a big fancy house and entertain all of her friends and family, be a big shot. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? This is the kind of stuff going on in our world. Look, they've got us stuck at 666. This is what they do. As soon as we get on a roll, let's see how long it stays there so we can make a joke out of it. Okay, thank you. Boy. Then you got PSYOP after PSYOP. Trolls, 666 view count. As soon as we get on a roll and start actually breaking stuff down, actually talking about this reality, talking about solutions, then here comes the unseen dark spiritual forces to try to derail everything. It's real. Spiritual attack is real. Like I told you guys, I've been under it. I'm starting to pull out of it now. Talking to you guys right now is kind of helping, but I feel like there are a lot of people still on the fence. There are a lot of people who still believe that Trump's going to save us, and that saddens me. There's a lot of people that still believe that they're going to get rescued away somehow without having to go through anything hard in life. When the end game is the same. The end result is still that we're going to be with Jesus. Does it matter if certain people get out of the hard times and others do? Think about your life. Many of you have had to fight cancer, divorces, abuse. You've already been through hell. Does it matter if you get to go home a little bit early than other people? The thought in of itself almost seems a little bit like self-idolization or selfishness to me when I think about that. Do I want to leave other people behind because they had more sin in their life than I did? It just doesn't even seem like a loving thing to wish for. All believers should be able to go home at the same time. We're all sinners. We all fall short. He who is without sin cast the first stone. So the whole concept almost to me seems like a big letdown, a big setup. So that when it doesn't happen, a bunch more people are going to lose faith and lose hope because they put all their eggs in this basket of being rescued before things get hard. And when things get hard and they don't get rescued, then they'll turn their back on God. Is what it sounds like to me. All right, you guys, I think I've talked enough today. I love each and every one of you. I'm not sure what the future holds. I'm not even sure if we'll be live tomorrow. I'm just feeling in a weird mood. I feel like sometimes the words I say aren't really getting through to a lot of people. The people that should be getting through to. It's a weird time of year. I don't know what's going on. So I guess I'll see you guys when I see you. Maybe tomorrow, may not. But I love you all, and that's all that matters. And that we love one another. Take care and be safe, everybody.